Republicans are gunning for Senator Chris Dodd's seat, and so is one Democrat so far. Merrick Alpert is here to talk about the hottest race in town. Watching The Real Story, I'm Lori Perez. The 2010 elections are more than a year away, but already the race for Senator Chris Dodd's seat is white hot. 5 Republicans are battling to be at the front of the pack, and for the first time since 1981, Senator Dodd will face a primary race from Democrat Merrick Alpert, who since May has been running his own in-party challenge. Here's Fox 61's political reporter Shelley Sinland.
I have lost faith in Senator Dodd.
Claiming Senator Christopher Dodd has been bathed in tens of thousands of dollars in special interest money.
It doesn't have to be like this. Politicians don't have to be corrupt.
Merrick Alpert officially got into the race and hopes to send Dodd packing. But unlike other Republican challengers, this one is sure to rock the boat in the Democratic Party.
I'm Merrick Alpert. I am a Democrat.
In front of his Mystic home with his wife and 2 children by his side and a whole slew of supporters, Alpert announced his plans to challenge Dodd in a Democratic primary next year. Alpert, who was raised by a single mother in Colchester, served as a peacekeeper in Bosnia, and now is a successful business owner, says Dodd's role in the AIG bonuses and what he calls Dodd's untruthful answers is what convinced him to run.
When you're directly asked, are you responsible, are you accountable, and you say no, and you stand there and look like Bambi in the headlights night after night on the news, at some point, you need to take responsibility, or you need to have the pride to skate off the ice.
Now, joining me now is Merrick Alpert. Thanks for coming here. What was the turning point? What was the point at which you realized that you were going to get in the race, that you needed to get in the race?
You know, there was a very specific day for me. I started off by going to Hartford to the barber who's cut my hair for 25 years, listen to him tell me about the troubles of his small business here in Hartford and about the troubles his clients were facing. I then went to Colchester to stop by and see my mom in that house where I grew up. And she was there, and she had in her hands her retirement account. And she looked up at me and said, Merrick, half of everything I've ever worked for is gone. And more than anything, that sentence really gripped me. And then from there, I went back to our house in Mystic, and Alex and I went to tuck our kids into bed that night. And we do what everybody does, tell them to tell the truth and take responsibility for their action. And then that night in our bedroom, we turned the news on, and the AIG scandal was playing itself out. And I saw someone who I had historically supported who wasn't doing what I teach my kids to do. That really was the turning point.
But don't you think, I mean, much of that, for instance, the countrywide mortgage controversy, hasn't that been resolved? I mean, there was that bipartisan committee that cleared him, saying he didn't violate ethics when he refinanced in 2003. Or do you think that that's, you're not satisfied with that?
Well, that's one issue of many issues. Look, there's a much bigger issue, and the bigger issue is that Senator Dodd was the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee when he allowed the banking system to collapse. He had taken tens of millions of dollars of special interest money from the corporations that wanted the deregulation that led to the collapse of the industry. So there are much bigger issues than just the 2 sweetheart mortgages that he got that Michael Moore, of course, talks about in his recent movie.
Right. You viewed the movie, and what did you think about it?
I did. Well, look. You know, Michael Moore is, he's America's most liberal filmmaker. So this isn't coming from any right-wing attack. And when you look at that movie, it's a powerful movie. Senator Dodd is really the featured character for about 4 minutes of that movie. I would liken it to the iceberg being the feature in the Titanic, and we all know the outcome of that.
So you mentioned that you historically supported him. Where do you think that he went wrong? At what point?
Well, I think somewhere along the 40 years he spent in Washington, he went wrong. To me, the pinnacle of his career was the Family and Medical Leave Act, where he was really, in my view, as a progressive Democrat, he was doing the right thing. But I think he simply was there too long. And I think that when you take, in his case, I think he's received about $50 million in campaign contributions during his career, including about 15 or 20 million from the folks he's supposed to regulate as the chair of the banking committee. I think somewhere along the way, you become part of a culture of corruption in Washington. $40, $50 million, that's an awful lot of money.
Tell me, how is the Democratic leadership reacting to your challenge? Because I know I get emails, multiple emails per day from, for instance, the state Dems reacting to something that Republicans have done and essentially defending Dodd. I mean, have they spoken to you?
Well, my day is actually spent out there traveling across the state, meeting with groups of Democrats. My particular focus is to visit all the 169 towns, to go visit with the Democratic town committees. I was at one, for example, last night. So I walk into a room in it's a classic Norman Rockwell scene. There you are in a town hall meeting, and there'll be 15, 20, 25 people you've never met before. You go in and introduce yourself. You explain why you're running. And then you share with them your visions and values for job creation in Connecticut, for clean government, for getting out of Iraq and Afghanistan. And when you leave an hour later, a lot of these people are openly with you. That is something that all the special interest money in the world and all the TV commercials in the world can't buy somebody sitting in Washington.
Right, so you're a fresh voice, I guess you're arguing, and you're not influenced by the special interests at this point. But there might be some who say, okay, but also Senator Dodd, because of his 40 years there, carries a certain amount of weight.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we have a new guy in there, what are you going to be able to
Well, I think that
do?
seniority argument is a bogus one. I said last night to the crowd that I was speaking to what I say every night, which is, did his alleged seniority protect the jobs that were lost in Connecticut? Did they protect the folks who don't have health care? Did his alleged seniority make the right decision in Iraq and Afghanistan? His alleged seniority didn't do anything to protect the 1,000 jobs we just lost at Pratt & Whitney. So, quite frankly, seniority is something that politicians wave around for their own benefit, for re-election, but it's not something that's helped us here in Connecticut.
Yeah, you mentioned those jobs that we just lost at Pratt & Whitney. What would you have done differently? You're a business owner.
Sure.
I mean, is Connecticut doing enough to be appealing to businesses to stay here?
No, it is not. Connecticut is widely viewed throughout this country in the business community as being an anti-job state, as being very, very unfriendly. Those 1,000 jobs were exactly the kind of high-wage, high-tech jobs we should have fought to keep. The time to worry about it is not after the horse is out of the barn. It's long before that. We need to do several things, from building up our educational system, to building up our VOTEC system, to making certain we create high-tech corridors and Silicon Valleys in the state around our higher educational institutions. There are a lot of things we should be doing that, as a business owner, I could tell you we clearly have not done.
Okay, let's talk about the other big thing going on is, of course, health care reform. The Senate Finance Committee is going to vote next week, or this week, on their reform package. What would we be hearing from you if you were there?
Well, you'd be hearing from me what I've been saying for about 16 years, since I worked 16 years ago on the National Health Care Campaign effort. I believe then, as I believe now, that in this situation we've got 46 million Americans uninsured today. Many of those are good, hard-working folks who deserve some basic insurance coverage for themselves and for their family. You've got to cover those people. You have to drive costs down. If you don't drive costs down, you're not going to be competitive in a global marketplace. And so for me, you have to have a public option. When I hear discussion in Washington that we're going to spend billions of dollars or trillions of dollars and we're not going to protect those 46 million Americans, I think that's shameful. To me, you have to have a public option in health care.
Okay, moving on. What do you think of this lineup of Republicans? I mean, they're certainly getting a lot of attention. We talked about how often we're hearing and seeing these Linda McMahon ads. I mean, she is spending a boatload of money.
Yeah, she is.
Who do you think is going to make it out of that whole pack?
It's a good question. They've got an interesting field. They have a pretty diverse field, quite frankly, from her to the other folks who have a myriad of experiences and I think bring different series of voices to the debate. I'm hopeful that whoever emerges from the Republican side is going to be as serious about job creation in Connecticut as I am. I'm also very hopeful that whoever emerges is going to embrace campaign finance reform and publicly finance campaigns at a federal level the way that I do. I think it's shameful to see the amounts of money, especially the special interest money, that's spent in these campaigns, and we need to clean that up so folks once again have faith in their government.
Do you think that you'll be a stronger candidate against one of those Republicans than Senator Dodd?
Well, I'm a much stronger candidate than Senator Dodd is in a general election. Look, there's a reason that we've got 200 Republican candidates waiting to jump into this thing to run against him. And the basic reason is that everybody knows the issues. I don't need to restate those. But the basic reason is that he's not electable. And they all know that. With me, you get somebody who does not have that record that he has of taking tens of millions of dollars of special interest money. You have someone with a strong military record. You have someone who lives in Connecticut, someone with a business background, somebody who can speak directly to the issue of creating jobs. That is a fundamentally tougher candidate for the Republicans. And look, the Republicans in their own circles make no secret. The last person they want to face is Merrick Alpert. The first person they want to face is Senator Dodd.
All right. Well, Merrick, I'm sure we're going to hear a lot from you over the next year. Thanks so much for taking time tonight.
Thanks for having me.